What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Grappler's Dilemma podcast, episode number 21. Woo. Got Matt Krause back. It's good to have you back.
Good to be back.
Yeah, dude, I took last week off. I was going to do a solo episode, but I have never done a solo episode for this podcast. I had guys send me questions. I was just so overwhelmed and then burned out from work. I'm like, you know what? We hit episode 20. I'm going to take 1 week off.
Dude, doing every week,
it's a lot.
Is gonna. I feel like you're gonna burn out a little bit and run out. I think you gotta take it a little bit in stride and do a week off every once in a while.
I think that that's okay, right? It's not like I'm Tucker Carlson trying to run a weekly show or some big deal. It's I've got 50 people that listen to it, and although I will say when we showed up to pickleball, I got recognized at the park.
Shut up.
I'm dead serious.
That's awesome.
By someone that goes to our gym, but no, we were walking up to the pickleball court, and I hear Aaron. I'm looking around, what the heck? Looking into the sun, trying to stare, right? Figure out one of these things. Hey, I just listened to your podcast, and it was Grace who was sitting there. I think you might have met her at
I met her.
Yeah, Cody's.
She's nice.
Cody's service. Her. Yeah, and I was like, oh shoot, dude, first time out in public and recognize it. Yeah, right. Super goofy, but shout out to Grace. Thank you for listening. That's pretty cool. It's honestly, it's super touching knowing the people at the gym listen to the podcast. Rob Hayden gave me a whole bunch of crap for missing an episode. Justin, of course, is a constant shit talker, and he'll let me know. It's hey, dude, why didn't the video come out on Wednesday? I was it's coming out tomorrow, dude. Please just chill, but thank you. He just likes to have the first comment on every video, is what I found out.
Good.
But yeah,
good job, Justin.
That's all good. But yeah, today's episode, I wanted to start off by talking about some of the downsides of jiu-jitsu, some of the negative aspects of the sport. And I think about it a lot like women's rights, right? Everyone's talking about women's rights this.
Jiu-jitsu and women's rights.
Women's rights that. But what about women's wrongs? You know what I'm saying, dude? What about women's wrongs? But no, we all talk about all the good, all the good things that we're all getting out of jiu-jitsu. But there are some downsides to being in an art that's so physically aggressive and very demanding on the body, right? And I'll just start off by saying, and I don't ever really recognize this until I take some time off. So, I've been complaining about this to the guys at the gym for 2 weeks now, but I had got cauliflower ear that blew up, and it was just it felt like a fireball on the side of my head. Had to get it drained 3 times, twice at the gym, once at the doctor's office, and it's
yours don't look that bad.
No, dude.
You took them down?
Yeah, well, okay, quick story. So first I went to Adam, and he sucked it out with a needle, shrunk it on down. I was like, sweet, we're good to go. But we didn't compress it. I didn't know that I was supposed to do that. So I woke up the next day, and I'm like, it was just as bad as it was before I got it drained. And then I was like, I'll just leave it. But my wife hates it. She thinks it's the most disgusting thing ever.
So does my wife.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, well, I'll go to the doctor to get this checked out. And dude, this doctor looks at it and goes, well, I've done one of these before, and I can try to do this one. And I was like, what? That doesn't instill confidence in the guy that's there about to get his ear drained, right? And I was like, yeah, let's just do it. Just gonna whatever you got to do. She comes in, lays out a table with a printout, step by step of what the procedure needs to be. And again, I'm just sitting there what am I even doing here? I should have just had another guy at the gym kind of suck this out. And instead of using a needle, they lanced it open, threw forceps in there, and started pulling out clotting.
Oh my gosh. And
then wrapped my head up, and she was just leave it on for 2 days. And dude, my ear was throbbing for those 2 days. I'm like, I feel like she did more damage than good in there. No sutures or nothing. Take it off after 2 days. It was bigger than it was before I went in there. And I went and talked to Adam about it, and he goes, yeah, dude, she caused the reason you use needles is so you don't cause extra trauma to the ear. And when you take a scalpel to something, it's going to get way more inflamed. That's why it's even bigger now. So I was like, oh, great. And then finally I was like, okay, I'm going to go one more shot trying to get rid of this thing. Chris Stone has probably done 100 of them, right? Sucked it out, had me buy these magnets. Sucked it out, put the magnets on. and like my ear canal was back and all this kind of stuff. It really doesn't look that bad now, dude. And the pain is totally gone.
I honestly think you have like the perfect amount of cauliflower.
Yeah, there you go.
It's like right now your cauliflower ear is like, yeah. I do something.
Yeah, dude.
But
people in the know would be able to spot it. That's what it is.
Yeah. I'm actually starting to get a little bit. I
see that.
I had black and blue on my ear. I was just commenting while I was on vacation to some of my family about how I kind of feel left out of the club.
Yeah.
Like I've been doing this for
and like wrestling and stuff too.
25 years. Yeah. I don't know, 30 years. And I hardly have any.
Dude, I wanted cauliflower so bad as a white belt. And then it started coming in and it doesn't feel very good.
Yeah. And I know my wife doesn't like it.
Sure.
And I don't mind a little bit, but you got kind of the perfect amount right now.
It's pretty good, man. On one side. As long as I don't get Preston's ears, dude. His ears look like there's ping pong balls floating underneath the skin. All right, dude? He was the first one that was like, now you have ears like me. I'm like, no.
So when they stay for a while, can you still drain them or no? You gotta do it right away.
I had a couple days where it was like part of it got hard, right? That's the part that's still sticking around here. So when Chris went in, he just found the pockets where it still felt like soft and squishy, and then pulled it out that way. But I knew because I was just waiting a long time. Where I was like, hey, dude, I'm not gonna be able to come in for 3 days. So if you're in there, if you wouldn't mind doing this, that'd be pretty slick. But anyway, bringing up the cauliflower ear. Like taking a break, right? I've taken a few days off of training just because I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna let this thing like really wind down. And you start to realize, like, oh, man, your body feels a little bit better after a week. And then you're like, man, how broke down was my body from just training 4 or 5 days a week consistently for X number of years, right? With very few times where you're, like, taking more than a week off.
Yeah.
You know, I think that, like, I mean, jiu-jitsu is hard on your body. And this is going to lead into what our topic today is going to be about, like, just general fitness and recovery techniques in the realm of jiu-jitsu and, like, grappling and combat sports. But I do think that there is this, there's this spirit of just, like, training through injuries that I don't necessarily, I think there's a fine line, right? There's a difference between being, like, you know, you're hurting a little bit versus being you've got an injury that you really need to be dealing with here. And this and the reason that this had come up is because over the last few weeks I've just had I had a partially torn lateral meniscus, right? And then I was wearing a brace, but I was still kind of pushing it a little bit. And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna take a few days off here. Where I should have, if I just would have been like, hey, I'm gonna take like a week off.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have dragged out for the month and a half, 2 months that it had been, bothering me. And I'm terrible about that, because I just want to but if I don't get my rolls in, then Preston's going to get a little bit better than me, and then he's going to pass my guard, and now I'm going to be in this place where I'm going to just be regretting my life. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I feel it. Dude, that's the biggest thing. Right now I'm doing 1 day a week.
Yep.
Maybe 2. Like this week I got 2. It's hard, though, because there's those guys on the come up. Mm-hmm. A lot of them are big, strong, younger guys who work out, and they're putting in at least 3, 4, 5 days a week. There's a kid that does I would go in at lunch, I'd see him. I'd go in the evening, I'd see him. And it's like, how many times is this kid doing?
Yeah, dude.
And he's watching instructionals, and it's like he just levels up so fast. Yeah. And then I'm coming in once a week, and I feel these guys passing, me by. And that doesn't feel good. But one of the ones I will say it was pretty hard to come up with some downsides.
Sure. Because jiu-jitsu is the greatest thing ever, dude.
Perhaps if I thought about it longer from a different perspective, I could find some. But one of them was injuries. Although I feel like, in a sense, anything that you do, like there's a risk of injury in pretty much anything.
Sure.
And if you're not doing anything, like there's a whole different set of things that your body is going to be predisposed to. So if you're staying active and, challenging your body at all, there's going to be some risk. So I agree with you, though. Jiu-jitsu obviously puts a bigger toll than going and working out at the gym or something, but maybe kind of equal to something like CrossFit or something.
I was just about to bring that up.
So, I was just thinking of that in my head. It's like CrossFit is actually probably in the same ballpark where you're just beating your body down all the time.
I just wonder what it's going to look like when we're, you look at guys like Ronnie Coleman, who put his entire life into big heavy weightlifting, and now he walks around with forearm crutches.
Poor guy.
So yeah, I know. I see that kind of stuff, and I'm like, okay, at what point when your age catches up with you in jiu-jitsu where you're like, oh, I'm actually there's two components to this, right? Because on one side, you're like incredibly, generally physically active your whole journey through jujitsu, right? Hopefully, you're having conversations about recovery and athletics that are helping to augment your training and that kind of stuff, right? So there's this aspect of like, hey, you're in an activity that's maintaining a certain level of activity, but the other side of it, I do wonder like, shoot, man, when I turn 65, is my back going to be so blown out that it's like going to be hard to pick up my grandkids, or is it going to be hard to like go on a hike and do all this kind of stuff? I've been thinking about that a lot more lately.
Yeah.
Just because, I was sitting down the other day and I was thinking, the muscle tears, I broke my foot one year and had to get surgery for that. Like just little stuff where, you wonder. I don't know. I guess like just finding that balance has been pretty. I've been more cognizant of it now.
Yeah.
I guess is what I would say to that.
Yeah, I think that's one thing where hitting my mid-30s,
Yes.
I found I used to go. I used to feel bad if I wasn't going every day. Like
Same.
And my coach at the time would give me a hard time if I missed a day, and so I had external pressure. And then I was feeling bad about it. And now I find like if I could go 3 days a week, that's great.
Yeah.
And that's what I was doing at Gig Harbor for a while, because that gives your body a little bit of time as you get older to rest, recover. I think you gotta deal with a lower intensity or lower volume as you kind of ascend a little bit.
Yeah, what I've been doing lately over the last month, I've probably been training about 3 days a week. And, 3 days of like normal classes, then open mat, right?
Yeah.
So 4 days. And then the other days are filled with some type of circuit training, like circuit workouts. And I think my body's been feeling a lot better because of that.
Yep.
Because it's like,
you're in your 30s, bro. You're
I know,
getting old.
dude. I know everyone just says that, right? I remember guys at the police department. It's like, dude, I know you're 25 now. I'm telling you right now, I didn't think it was going to happen to me either. When I got into my 30s, things start to hurt, and like you're going to have to take care of yourself in a different way. And I feel like I'm kind of finding what that space looks like for me now, and it really does look like, okay, I need to take the foot off the gas a little bit when it comes to go getting mat time in, and like doing more strength training, and like, okay, I need to think about this as like a symbiotic thing where it's not just, I'm going to go do my weight training, I'm going to go hit my circuits on days where I'm not able to make it to the gym, but actively saying, hey, I'm not going to go train tonight, and instead I'm going to go hit this kettlebell deal, or going to go swing a mace around and that kind of thing.
I love how we didn't even plan it, but this is going to be the perfect tie-in.
Yeah. For sure. For sure.
One of the other things I had, again, kind of grasping at straws here, a little bit of a false confidence that I think comes with people training, especially, white, blue, maybe even purple belt.
Sure.
I think guys our size, particularly,
Yeah.
it's like I think we can get a little bit overconfident of our abilities. And the reality is, like, in the real world, like, there's a lot of big dudes. There's a lot of dudes who may not train, but they're still tough as nails.
Sure.
I just watched Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Have you seen that?
Yeah. Heck
Yeah. I just watched it again yesterday for the first time since it came out. It's a really good movie. I wish there's a couple scenes that go a little bit too far, just like every Quentin Tarantino movie. But like apart from those couple scenes, man, it is like almost perfect.
Yeah.
It's great. But as I was thinking of the false confidence, it was kind of funny. Like they have this scene with Bruce Lee fighting Brad Pitt's character, and obviously it's the movie. It's completely ridiculous, but in the movie, Bruce Lee is like, he's doing his Bruce Lee thing. He's being really confident. He's talking about how he would beat Cassius Clay in a fight, and then Brad Pitt's character laughs, and then they have to, they challenges him basically to whoever knocks the other one down 3 times.
Yep.
And the first time Bruce Lee gets up there and does some cool ninja move, knocks him down. Then like the second and third time, it's like Brad Pitt's character like picks up on it and then just manhandles.
Sure.
He just, after he picks up pretty quickly, that kind of tough guy thing. And obviously it's a movie, but I do think there's an element of reality where You can do all these cool moves. You can have this cool colored belt. But in the real world, if you kind of take the mentality out there that, you can hang and, take down some of these guys, I don't know.
Well,
It's best to like avoid conflict,
Sure.
obviously, wherever you can,
Yes.
regardless. But I'm not sure I would still be trying to pick a fight with someone.
that reminds me of a story. So we're at the gym, and I was rolling around with a guy named Brant, who's a blue belt now, but big dude, probably, I don't know, 6'2", probably has 100 pounds on me.
Okay.
And I was playing guard, right? And I remember having this thought, or I'm underneath him trying to get like sweeps and stuff. I'm like, and this was when he was a white belt, and I'm thinking like, why is this white belt giving me so much like grief when I'm trying to get this stuff to work? And so I was kind of feeling some kind of way about it, and we finish our roll, and I go sit, and then Chris goes with Brant, and I'm like, okay, well, see how Chris deals with it. And Chris stayed on top the whole time, like stayed on top, a lot of like heavy pressure, using movement because he was a little bit quicker, right? He's a little bit smaller. And so I see that finish up, and I'm like, oh. So I literally said this out loud. It's like, so the thing with Brant is that you have to stay on top. He's like, he looks over me like I was just an idiot. And he goes like, why would I lay underneath a guy that has 100 pounds on me, right?
Yeah.
And then it was just like, for me, it was like, oh yeah, that's right. This
Yeah.
this purple belt's not like a talisman, you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
it's a indicative of a certain skill set. But when it comes to someone who had, like, physicality is also going to play a part in this. And then the other component to what you said about the overconfidence thing, the more that I take like these combative seminars, like the street defense stuff or the knife control stuff, the more you're like, shoot, man, all this stuff is a great equalizer, and you might be a little bit more, like, have a little more survivability because of your jujitsu, but there's all of these little factors that we're not taking into account when it comes to, like, you dealing with something out in the street.
Yeah.
And
We're also dealing in a game that has rules.
Yes,
It
totally.
does have rules, and we're on a mat.
Yep.
Mats are a heck of a lot different than concrete.
oh, for sure, man. Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I think that is, I mean, and as you said, like, especially like white and blue belt, like that era, dude, I was one of those guys at blue belt. I was like, just try me, 6'5" dude in Fred Meyer, you know? And it's like, dude, that's probably not going to be a fun time, you know? I think
the
it's
other reality is there are people who don't have much to lose.
Totally.
And those people scare the crap out of me.
For sure.
It's like I'm not willing to go to
Sure.
the extreme. I'm not willing to go to jail
Yep.
in this altercation.
Yeah.
Barring it be something where I feel completely justified
Sure.
and my family's in danger.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not willing to do that. Some people are willing. Some people don't have much to lose,
Sure.
and they will go 100 when
Yeah.
you're only willing to go 70,
Totally.
and that's pretty scary.
Yeah, you think about like a 3-strike felon or something like that, where I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm already in a fight. I'm gonna go to prison. I'm gonna murder this
And they
guy,
feel
you know?
more comfortable
Yeah,
in prison. They don't mind
totally.
being there. So
Yeah.
I think that's scary. And then the last one I kind of had, again, I don't really know if it's not really a downside, but just the reality of getting into jiu-jitsu is there's like a steep learning curve.
Yes.
Yeah. That first, I don't know, 6 months ish,
Yeah.
you got to be really comfortable getting your butt kicked
Sure.
by most people in the gym.
Yeah.
And
It can
No,
be
that's-
emotionally taxing.
yeah, it is. And I think a lot of people quit
I agree.
during that like interim phase before they ever get to the point where it turns the corner and you start to be the guy who's
Yeah.
dictating things. So you got to be, if you're starting out, and even if you have started out and you're in that phase, I'd encourage you to like push through, because once you get to the other side, it's awesome. Like
Yeah.
once you start to be able to play your game and develop your skills, but you're gonna, especially if you start later in life and you didn't wrestle,
Yeah.
you're gonna be in for at least like 6 months of little kids,
Getting the boots put to you,
115
man.
pound women, like all these people kind of crushing you.
Yeah. I mean, Preston talked about like that bifurcation where it's like, okay, you have that experience, and then it's either I'm never doing this again, or I'm gonna learn to be that guy, And I think it's very much a blessing. It's like kind of like Calvinism, right? Some people are just chosen. We're just, but I'm just I feel very
You snuck
fortunate.
Calvinism in here. Good job, buddy.
I was very fortunate to like be in the latter half of that, and partially because it was like I was doing a job at the time where I was like, I need to have this, and now that I know that I'm lacking this much, like I really need to dive into this and really get really get my grasp on it. But no, I think those are great points. Yeah, but honestly, when I asked the question, the only thing that really came to my mind was like just how hard it is on my body. Like days where I'm like, oh man, like going to work. I do a pretty physical job where it's like, dude, I'm paying for this week's training, like feeling that sometimes. There's like climbing up a ladder. I'm like, oh, there's an injury that I didn't really know that it was bothering me, little things like that. But with all that said, dude, that is so paled in comparison to all the beautiful things about jiu-jitsu and the reason that we choose to do the sport, because, I mean, I wouldn't be sitting in my living room doing a podcast on this stuff if it wasn't something I thought was one of the most advantageous things that you could actually incorporate into your life. And who cares, dude? By the time you're 65, who cares if you can't walk anymore? You know what I mean? Like, but whatever.
I mean, you're just as likely to not be able to walk if you sit on your couch.
Totally.
On your butt. You got to do something.
Yeah, I agree.
Do something you love. And, we can get into, like, a bunch of the things that we've kind of found that have been successful for alleviating some of the downsides to the body,
that is the perfect segue into what we were going to talk about. So I think that let's go there. And me and Cody have had a couple conversations where we lightly touched on some of this stuff, but here's what let's start with this. When you first start, how has your fitness and recovery program changed from like when you first started, whether that was like, it was completely non-existent or you were doing something totally different, to what you're doing now, and what are those things that you're doing now?
Ooh, that's a lot. I used to work out like every day. Like since I was 15-ish, I would lift weights probably 5 days a week.
Traditional, like bro split bodybuilder stuff.
And I would do a lot more higher rep things. So it was kind of cool because I was always built a little perfectly for grappling because I was strong, but I had high levels of muscular endurance.
Gotcha.
So I did that from when I was like 15 till COVID.
Okay.
And then COVID happened and everything went out the window. And a lot of the things I kind of have figured out and tinkered with came about because of COVID. I used to never really stretch.
Okay.
I'd never do foam rollers, do any of that stuff. And I think when you're younger, you can get away with some of that stuff.
I agree.
But as I got older and picked jiu-jitsu back up in my 30s, I had to kind of think differently. And then also COVID kind of necessitated a pivot because the gyms were all closed. So, yeah, how's yours changed?
I was only doing bro split bodybuilding for the first couple years, and then I almost wasn't. Then my weightlifting became so infrequent because I was just training as much as I could, and I've talked about this again on the podcast before, but like when I was at Gracie Baja, it was sometimes like I'm gonna go burn it down 6 to 7 days a week, or I'm gonna say 6 to 7 sessions a week, right? Because there's some days where like I'm gonna go twice today. I'm gonna go during lunch class, and I'm gonna go back for the evening class, and I did that a lot.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was one of those things where my fitness goals totally went out the window because all I cared about was getting better at grappling. So like early on, and I don't think that I really started reincorporating any type of, and I was doing no recovery work.
Yeah.
None. No stretching, no yoga, no ice baths, no foam rolling, nothing, dude. It was like ibuprofen was my program at that point, right? Like, yeah, I'm gonna drink some water, and I was still eating like crap all the time. I was hammering my body in the gym and then doing nothing to mend it on the outside, and I paid for it a lot of times, you know.
And you getting away with that when you're younger creates, again, kind of a false sense of confidence.
Totally.
You can keep doing this.
Yep.
And, I look at COVID for me was a huge blessing in so many ways, but I look at a lot of the forced pivot in my physical training as just this beautiful blessing that came around that I wouldn't have otherwise done.
Yeah.
So I'll say the first thing that I had on my list, and my list is very disorganized, but
Okay.
massages.
Yeah.
I put it first on the list because I just love them so much. I'm a huge fan of like deep tissue massage.
Is there anybody that doesn't like massages though?
I don't know.
There can't be anybody.
I feel like there's some people that don't like being touched, but
Okay.
I'm not sure you're doing jujitsu if you're one of those
Yeah,
people.
that's for sure. They're definitely not listening to this, for sure.
So,
So how often do you go get a massage done then?
not very much anymore.
Okay.
My previous employer had in their health care package, I could get like 50 a year.
No kidding.
So the last couple pro fights I was training for, I was going every week and getting a deep tissue massage as I was like preparing, and it was awesome. It was so
that is
glorious.
the best.
And I think in that regimen, it can be really helpful and beneficial. I've always dreamed if I like struck it big, one of the luxuries I would have is like a personal masseuse.
Heck yeah, dude.
I mean it's I find them to be really actually helpful.
Do you prefer a male masseuse or a female masseuse?
That's a good question.
I know. That's why I asked it.
I've found, strangely, I've found
yeah.
the best massages are often from the women, and because again, like, I'll always tell them like I like it hard, like you can go hard, and most of the guys I go with, because at this one place I was going when I was again doing the 50 massages a year or whatever, they had like a whole staff, like 7 or 8 masseuses.
Yep.
Masseurs.
Masseurs? Monsieur. I have no idea, dude.
And the guys were not good.
Really?
And there were like a couple ladies who were awesome. And they were like smaller.
Gotcha.
And, yeah, so I intuitively thought it would be the males because
Stronger.
I was like, they're stronger.
Yeah,
They're
for
going to be
sure.
able to go. But the 3 best masseuses
Yeah.
that I've ever had have all been females.
Yeah. I've only ever gotten massages from females.
Yeah. It's kind of weird either way, I
Yeah.
guess.
Well, I guess, and like you said, intuitively, I would have assumed that, like, a man would be able to, like, really dig in there a little more, right? Big, strong man hands.
Yeah.
But, like, there's been a couple chicks that have put the hurting on me, dude,
Yeah.
where I'm like, ah!
Yeah.
Like, that kind of, like, holy crap, like, back it up a little bit, like, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But, yeah, massages, I mean, I guess if you can make that happen regularly, that's a kind of a good deal. And now, of course, now that you said that, I'm like, I should take a look at what my healthcare plan, because the last insurance I had that, never took advantage of it, ever.
Yeah.
And so now I'm like, okay, I should look and see what I got
You should
coverage
look and
on.
see,
Yeah.
and others should look and see. Like, if you got it, take advantage of it.
Sure.
And I think this kind of bleeds into another thing that I found to be very helpful, and it's kind of foam rolling.
Okay.
But I brought along my little cork roller because this is what I used
Mm.
for foam rolling. So what happened? This is actually like a balance board, kind of the anchor,
Let
the
me
ball,
see that real
the
quick.
ball below.
Oh, that's solid.
Yeah, it's like a piece of wood.
Feels like a piece of PVC pipe or
It's
something.
it's very tough. So what happened was I had these little parallel, and this is during COVID. I had these little parallel bars out of PVC pipe I had made,
Okay.
and so I was trying to do this thing where you kind of sit into an L. I'm sure this has a move or a name and everything. I'm sorry, but so you get up on your parallel bar. You kind of kick your feet out straight. You're holding them in like an L sit. And then you tuck your feet and you invert without touching the ground, and then you do like a handstand
dang.
push-up. And I was able to do it when I was a little younger, and so I was trying to do it during COVID, and I was realizing there were a couple points that I was having a little difficulty with. Like, I think particularly like some point in the tuck back,
Okay.
and then the other one was like getting the full vertical inversion. I was only getting like, I was kind of off, maybe 15 degrees. And so I'd get like up and then I'd kind of fall.
Gotcha.
I would have a hard time like getting completely vertical. So then I just kind of Googled I Googled this move or whatever. And they were like, oh, the 2 biggest issues with people getting into being able to do this is your hamstring flexibility and your shoulder mobility.
Gotcha.
I have shoulder mobility issues because I've hurt my shoulders a couple times. So I knew that, and I was always working on that. But then the hamstring flexibility. So then I go to Google, and I'm like, how do I improve my hamstring flexibility? And I don't remember the whole rabbit trail, but something about that rabbit trail I think was like leading me to foam rolling. And so what I did was I didn't have a foam roller. I had this little cork thing. And so I just started foam rolling the absolute crap out of my hamstrings for like hours at a time. And what I realized after a few weeks was like my hamstrings turned into like, they were like cables. It was insane. Like my hamstrings, and it was like this second order effect. I was trying to do this move.
Yes.
But by kind of intentionally identifying a problem, hamstring flexibility, and then like specifically targeting that, I had kind of, and then utilizing a tool that was maybe a little above, I had stumbled into this thing that was like just turned it up to
Gotcha.
And
I've never heard that effect from foam rolling before.
I think you would have to do it a lot.
Gotcha.
And I think that's one of the things with foam rolling or cork rolling. The way that it really transformed my physique and my legs and everything was doing it way over the top.
Gotcha.
Like doing it for like, while I'm watching TV, I'm constantly rolling.
Gotcha.
And another, it's like I would not sit on a couch. I still hardly sit on a couch. I normally sit on the ground, and I have my back up against the couch with my legs kind of out straight. Because I had like poor back posture.
Gotcha.
Right? So I had like poor back posture, and I had like hamstring mobility. So like I kind of forced myself to sit on the floor. I heard floor sitting was better somewhere or something. And so like I just kind of forced myself to be a little bit uncomfortable. And then the other thing about like the rolling is there's usually spots that hurt. Usually like when people start like the IT bands, some of the rolling, and especially if you were to do it with something like a cork roller, you're going to find some real sensitive areas.
Gotcha.
And my philosophy that is kind of evolves from this, and this is all Matt's personal philosophy. This is not doctor endorsed.
This is not medical advice.
Because I've done a lot of physical therapy for like shoulders and stuff, and the physical therapists, because they're not you, and there's liability, and there's all these things, they will tell you like go till it hurts.
Yeah.
I found like my recipe for success is go till it hurts, and then go just a little bit more.
Gotcha.
And then stay where it hurts, and like work where. And I think this applies in a whole lot of different areas, but like go to it hurt, go to the point where you really feel the pain. Try and go a little bit more, and then just like, especially with a roller, you're kind of just rolling back and forth, right? So it's like you find those points, and then you just target them, and you just stay in that point, and you get comfortable going just a little bit past that point.
Gotcha.
And then the next day or the next week, if you're at it, that point has moved 1%.
Yep.
And so then the point that hurts is like 1% farther. And if you're consistent about it, you can really, I think, unlock doors. But I don't really buy the go till it hurts and then stop. With working out.
Yeah.
I would equate that to like, you're on a bench press or something, and you go till you get tired and then you rack.
Yeah.
You need to go like that last rep or two where you're really having to work on that negative.
Yep.
Or you're really having to have someone help you
Your
up.
spotter got to put a little weight on it, yeah.
That last little part where you're in the point where you can't quite do it.
That's where the magic happens.
100%.
Totally.
I totally believe that's where the magic happens. So
you're talking about, this is one thing that I have learned, and it's something that after I kind of realized it, my dad used to be like this, where if you're someone who doesn't necessarily want to have a secondary, I don't know even know what to say, like a fitness regimen outside of the gym, but you still want to like mind your P's and Q's when it comes to things like stretching and foam rolling. Like, how often are you sitting down watching TV? Okay, just make it a little bit more active by sitting in like a split position or a butterfly position or whatever. Just like take advantage of those little wind down times that naturally occur throughout your day. Or it's even things like, sometimes I'm at work and I'm like, okay, I got a little bit of a break, and I'll just hang off a rafter.
Yeah.
Like little stuff like that where I'm like, okay, I'm going to take 30 seconds to a minute out of my day to do this. And then if you're routinely like checking in with yourself to do things like that, you'll realize like, man, I actually did quite a bit of stuff today in order to maintain a certain level of physical fitness. So when it comes to like TV, like I've been wanting to be able to do the splits for a long time, just like a full split. So that's been like my big push, has been trying to do something where I can just drop down to a full split. I don't think, even if once I can do it, not sure if it's necessarily something I would maintain, but I just want to get to that point once, like to have the flexibility to be able to do it. So like when I sit down to watch TV or play video games, there's like a certain position where Bill Superfoot Wallace, he was like one of my dad's favorite kickboxers back in, shoot, dude, forever ago, right? Something BC. You would sit down, and so like you sit with your legs spread open, and then you anchor one of your heels to the floor, and then you take your other heel, and for people that are watching on camera, like if I anchored this heel down to the floor, then I would push this one further out, and it just forces that opening. So I'll like watch a show and sit and find that point to where it hurts. It's uncomfortable, and then if you just sit there in that position, eventually it's like your body just like, okay, this is just our normal, this is our normal position. Then you give it an extra inch, and it's like, okay, now it's hurting again, and then you just kind of like lean into that and let it kind of cool down, and then just keep on working that way. I think that there's such an advantage of like, it's kind of like when I think about like kids, and we grew up in like the country, right? So it was a lot of like farm boys and a lot of doing stuff outside and all this kind of stuff. And there were some kids out there that were freaking fit. And it's not like they were going to the gym every day to do like traditional workouts, because the world was their gym equipment, right? They were doing things that were so physically demanding, and that's where their workout came in. So it's like you can kind of, for me, I try to maintain that mindset to where it's like, hey, fitness doesn't just happen in my home gym.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't just happen when I'm at the Jiu-Jitsu Academy. Sometimes it can happen when I'm watching TV or when I see a rafter over here. I'll do 5 to 10 pull-ups on it, just one set, right? Little things like that. And over time, that stuff starts to accumulate. And when you maintain that kind of a mindset,
yeah,
you just start to like look at things a little bit different. And I think this is the other thing I think it's good for. Like when I'm at work, right? And it's like, okay, we have these 30-pound jugs of gas that we have to walk up 3 flights of stairs, then climb a ladder to get on the roof. Okay, you can approach that and be like, this is about to be miserable, or be like, this is going to be my workout. And then you like, instead of thinking about how much this sucks, you're like, okay, this is my workout, right? I'm like, this is a small child I'm grabbing by the wrist trying to get up. Like a little like mindset shifts like that. I think that's a good thing, and it's totally changed the way that I approach anything that's like physically demanding, whether that be things at work or going on hikes, like little stuff like that, where I'm like, okay, like this is it. I remember there was like these 100-pound containers of gas that we had to carry down this flight of stairs, and I remember picking that up thinking like, and then in my brain I was like, okay, this is my wife that I'm carrying, right? Like, and then you start to like see what your limit is there. It's like, okay, I have to get her out of here, whatever. She snapped an ankle. Like, how far could I really do it? How far, like, what is my level of ability and efficiency here? And I really do think that if you can find that mindset, that it kind of does magic in your day to day.
Yeah. So I had the same desire with the splits, right? When I was
is that right?
When I was your age. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I did the same thing. I like Googled or I YouTube how to do the splits, and I started doing those things, and I started actively working on that, and I would do it while I was watching TV. I got pretty close. I think I got very close, but I never quite got there. And recently I've kind of felt the itch I've kind of fallen off on some of these things that I unlocked, and I want to start doing them again, partially because, like I said, I'm showing up one day a week at the gym. These kids are pushing themselves. I don't like slipping behind.
Yeah.
I have to kind of tap back into some of these things. I got a little kid at home. I don't have the same time. So I need to start doing some of these things that
Yeah.
give me that extra kind of thing. And the other thing you were talking about with like watching TV,
Yep.
that was another huge thing I opened up, which was just sitting in a low squat while I watched TV.
Yeah.
So
So
I would go ahead.
you had an Instagram for a while.
Yeah, I still do.
Oh, it was like, what was it, Lionheart?
I did have that one too.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So that was the first time. It's kind of funny because I didn't really know you. I'd rolled with you a little bit at the gym, but I knew you were buddies with Cody. And I remember peeping that Instagram and seeing some of the stuff you were doing, like this deep squat and like shifting your weight.
Yeah.
And then I started kind of bringing that. I was like, okay, I wonder what this is all about because guys like, I mean, I'd imagine like you as well, that grow up doing like big heavy weightlifting and stuff. All like the stuff that's a little more gentle in appearance, right? Like the deep squat and shifting your weight and like trying to find your strength. It's not as like sexy until you start doing it. You're like, oh, like
Yeah.
there's actually seriously something to this.
Yeah, yeah. So I the same thing. I grew up always. I remember in high school, it was like squat, knees don't go forward of the toes.
Yes.
All this, right? It's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
and you go till you're like, your butt is your hip line kind of is below your knees. And then I started sitting in a squat while I was watching TV and started just tinkering, like moving my weight back and forth. Then I'd had this like little box. I still have it. I gotta whip that thing out.
Yeah.
I gotta go back to the basics. Man. Like I figured a lot of cool stuff
Rediscover,
out,
yeah.
and it's like I gotta go back. But I would sit on this little box that just had enough room for my feet to be on, and it was like a foot off the ground. And I would just like kind of shift off,
Gotcha.
shift off, shift forward, and I would just like spend ungodly amounts of time there. So one December over COVID, I kind of just made the challenge on to myself on Instagram or whatever. I was like, I'm gonna sit in a squat for 30 minutes a day for a month.
Okay. Oh,
And
dang.
So I did that, and like the first day I got like 35 minutes or something like that. By the third day, I was in it for over 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I had days where I was in the squat for over 3 hours. So again, kind of like just turning it up to the extreme with the rollers.
Yeah.
I started just turning this thing up to the extreme with the squats. And what I found was my feet started turning into little hands. With like grappling, like I think those who've grappled with me, like one of the things that might be a little unique is like I am able to literally use my feet like hands. Because that's how I've kind of like framed it in my head,
Yeah.
you know. And it's largely because I started targeting these like really what it is like a lot of the tibs.
Okay.
So I'd get in these low squats. I'd sit in it for like 3 hours during the day, watching TV. Whenever I'm doing something passive, I try and like complement it with something like, if it's like really passive, I'm at least sitting on the floor.
Okay.
Usually like rolling out or doing something else. And I kind of feel like you couple the thing you want to do with something you need to do.
Totally.
And it kind of helps out. And I remember Cody had been doing this for a while, and then Cody had brought up this dude. This was several years ago, and he had mentioned in passing this guy, this knees over toes guy. I was like, I've never heard of him. And then later that week, I saw knees over toes guy was on Joe Rogan, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Cody just mentioned him, so I listened to him, and this dude kind of created this whole system for what I was kind of stumbling into. And so then I started like adopting some of the things he was doing. And like, for example, like he had all these different exercises that would focus on like training the tips. And so I at this point, I'm already realizing these squats have unlocked something really unique with the way I'm able to use my feet in jiu-jitsu. And like, I have this kind of like very small little superpower with like how I use my feet. And this guy has demonstrated like this whole system about how to like target that. And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna steal this. So some of the stuff like I would do, he has a lot of like sled work.
Yes.
sled work, kind of forward and then backward. I would encourage, if you're interested in kind of unlocking some of this, I would say go back to his first Joe Rogan appearance.
Yeah.
I think at the time when he did that, I remember going to his Instagram and he had everything broken down into like, what I appreciated so well was like, he just had this completely professional mindset with how he had this. It was awesome. Like, by the time he did Joe Rogan, he knew it was going to blow up.
Yep.
And so everything on his Instagram was structured in a way that like people who heard him there would go there, and it was like
Find it
step
right
by
there.
step by step, this intro thing. It was awesome. I
Yeah.
think now he's been doing it for like 5 years.
Sure.
It's a little more convoluted when I've went in there and I've tried to like show people, and it's like, I don't really know where to find some of the stuff. But his original Joe Rogan thing, probably around 2021, 2022, was really awesome. But yeah, the sled work is awesome. He has some really cool like tib exercises that are very low impact. Like I just do them all the time still.
Yeah.
Like, especially as I'm trying to get back into unlocking some of these things again. I'm really incorporating those into my weightlifting programs. And then another one that was cool is like walking backwards up hills.
Yes, I've seen that a lot.
So we have this park by Cody's old place, and there's this hill pretty much right when you start out that's probably like 600 meters, and it's a pretty steep grade.
Yep.
We'd go out there a couple times a week, and every time we'd go out there for like a year, I'd turn around right when we get to the bottom of the hill,
Yep.
and I'd walk as fast as I could with like a controlled core backwards.
Dude, Cody is the one who turned me on to walking up hills backwards.
I turned his butt on.
Is that right? Well, he's not here to defend himself, so. But he called me one night, and it was one of those things like, "Hey, dude, I just need someone to talk to. Would you mind, like, can we go for a walk?" Which was like, nobody has ever said that to me before. I'm like, shoot, man, it was awesome. Let me just say that. But there was like a trail that he had led me to. Like, big dirt road. It was near his house, and we hit this hill, and he's like, all right. And I was like, all right, what? He's like, we got to walk this up backwards. And I'm like, all right. Halfway up the hill, dude, I was like, holy crap. Okay, there's something,
Try it.
something to
Find
this.
like a 400 meter or something close with like a moderate grade. Walk it backwards. You'll feel your muscles, like different muscles than you've known.
You know, it's
activating.
Talking about like this whole like the fitness side of this, the recovery side. I just want to point out, especially to anyone who's listening to this as like a young buck just getting into this. It's like we're not talking about doing like a bunch of Olympic lifts and stuff. We're talking about stuff that's gonna like bulletproof your body.
That's exactly what it does.
You
and
know?
like these things, with the low squat and the walking up hills and the pushing the sled.
I know it doesn't sound sexy, dude, but like, oh my gosh, it'll change.
They really
it'll change
that's the whole purpose, and that's why
Totally.
I started doing it. Like, to bulletproof my knees.
Yep.
That, it was kind of the hand feet, but the reality was I was doing it so that I could train without knee damage.
Yep.
And it had these residual effects that was like really awesome. Yeah. I try and impose some of these things to the younger guys at the gym, but I don't think these things quite catch.
Not until you need them.
Yeah.
Not until you need them, dude.
But if you do them when you're younger, God, like the growth that you could have.
Do you do anything that's kind of like, I'm not sure if, I mean, all this stuff is relatively niche, but like, do you mess around with like cold plunge and sauna or anything like that?
I love cold plunge. I don't do it that often.
Okay.
When we go camping soon.
Yeah.
It was one of like Cody and I would be the only ones really doing it.
Is there gonna be a river out there or what?
There will be water where we go.
Okay, cool.
And it will be cold.
Someone can teach me how to swim then, because I took swim lessons as an adult, and then I just stopped. But yeah, well, I could use that. That'd be a good 3-day deal.
Yeah.
No, dude, cold plunge. That is like, I was just cracking a joke in the like in our group message where I was like, "Yep, look at this. Like, I hate doing it every time," which is true. Every time I step up to like so I have like a commercial ice maker, and then a big, I don't know, aluminum bin that I fill it up with and fill that with water. It gets down flipping cold and jump in. And every time I walk into it, my internal monologue is like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Like, it does not. It's so bizarre. Like, it's almost like my mind is trying to protect me from going through what I know is about to be miserable.
Yeah.
And so every time I do it, I do 5 minutes. I'll set a timer for 5:15. So I have 15 seconds to like lean over it and stare at it. But I know by the time that hits the 5 minutes, I need to put in 5 minutes strict. So I better be in that freaking plunge. And I get in there and it's like that initial shock to the body, right? For like 10 seconds. And then you're like, okay. Now you're in it, your breathing returns. I have not found, and I know there's a lot of people that say, well, it's kind of it was this fad thing. There's all this science that speaks out against it now. I don't believe that, dude. Because, like, I have had so much benefit and success since I started doing it that I don't, and all the guys that I know that are like, savage grapplers or real big fitness guys, they utilize the same kind of, like, ice plunge protocol, and they find benefit in it. So, and I honestly think that there's some times where it's like this, it takes time for the science to catch up, where it's like they might be looking at these markers like, well, it's not affecting this, this, and this, which is what we would expect to see. But then 10 years later, like, oh, actually what it was doing was this. We didn't understand why that was beneficial at the time. There's clearly something to it that is good for you.
A lot of the times the science sucks.
Yeah.
Because the science is looking at like one particular avenue, right?
Sure.
And our bodies are all integrated.
Yes.
And furthermore, like the science isn't capturing anything on like the spiritual level.
I agree
and
completely.
It's like what you're talking about is more than just. I fully agree with you in terms of the physical benefits, but there's also immense like spiritual and mental benefits to that whole inner dialogue that you're having. And I have the same thing. I think most people.
Yeah.
Most sane people have the same thing when they approach an ice bath.
Yes.
Which is why only a couple of us, when we go on camping trips, end up doing it, because it's
not fun in a traditional sense.
But I'll say the last camping trip I went on with Cody and our group of friends last year, man, dude, like one of my most favorite moments probably of my life. Like it was like, it just lives rent free. It's like Cody and I got in this little stream that was kind of by this trail and overlooking this grassy alpine lake area. And Cody and I just sitting there, freezing, but nourished. It was a hard hike. It was probably 6 miles straight up, and one of my buddies couldn't carry his bag, so I ended up having to throw his bag on my bag. It was
how emasculating.
And I was yeah. I agree. I want to send this to him just so he has to listen to this.
No, hold on, I haven't met him yet. Like, just wait.
I won't say his name. But it was pretty emasculating. But
I would lay and die, dude. I'd be like, no.
By the time we got to this place, my body was beat up, and then sitting in that little creek with Cody, looking out at this like grassy prairie, and the mountains in the back, and the sun setting, was divine. It was awesome. So, yeah, there's the physical benefits, but I think even more so than that, it's kind of like the find where it's painful and then go a little bit farther, right? It's that whole mindset of putting yourself into discomfort.
Yes.
Like intentional discomfort.
Yeah.
Focused intentional discomfort with a purpose. And then just doing it anyways. And I think that is building up that habit is one of the most important things.
Dude, I think it's fun. I love having guys like you to talk to, because you talk about like the spiritual component. It's almost like you jump into it and your perception there's this serious shift, and it's almost like things go quiet. Like my mind is busy, generally speaking, where there's like, I'm always like, there's a underlying worrying all the time, or like over analyzing stuff. But when you're like jumping into water that's 33 degrees for 5 minutes, all that stuff is like, no, this is what's important now, is you finding your rhythm in your breath and making it through the next 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's like, that whole, and this is like, this isn't necessary. I first approached these concepts when I was like, before I had rediscovered my Christian faith, and it was like the Eastern mysticism stuff about like, what's that guy's name, dude? He's kind of like elfy looking, but yeah, Eckhart Tolle, where he was talking about like the be present now, right? Like those little things. And sometimes it's like catching smoke, where it's like, okay, I understand what you're saying, and I have found myself in those moments. But then when you're out of it, it's like, man, why can't I rediscover that? But things like cold plunge or, prayer and meditation, it forces, for whatever reason, you right back in there. And I always have this moment when I'm in the cold plunge. I'm like, I wish that I could maintain this all the time.
Yeah.
Like whatever this is, where I'm like, it just seems like I feel like I'm taking in creation in a way that's like, oh my gosh, how come I haven't, right? This is going to sound so corny, and I get that, but right, like how come I haven't really noticed like how beautiful this yard is, or like this new patch of wildflowers that started sprouting. It's like, oh my gosh, I have mushrooms in the yard now. Like little things like that, where it's like it just takes all this you're consuming so much and all this information, right? We talk about that a lot when it comes to like social media and all this sort of thing. And then when you bring it back down, you have this intense moment of like focus and stillness. It's like rediscovering the way you're meant to be living on the day to day. And I know that like, again, I say a lot of stuff that I understand theologically might be off, but when I hear things like prayer, like pray without ceasing, like you're constantly focused on that, like in communicating with God or connecting with the divine, there's something there and what I'm talking about with the ice bath and finding that moment of stillness, there's something there that is like, there's a Venn diagram there that sometimes I feel like I'm really grasping at, trying to figure, okay, so what exactly is that I'm like really reaching, like pray without ceasing. It seems like for me, it has that same flair as like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm sitting here, I'm being really in this moment, I'm able to be in communion with creation and pray and have a clear head when it comes to having a lot of these thoughts and feeling grateful for my life and all this kind of stuff, right? It's like, and of course, like the materialistic worldview or science would say like, well, it's these endorphins firing off, but there's something so spiritual about it that if you've been there in that place before, you can totally understand what I'm saying.
If you haven't, go jump in an ice bath,
sure,
and you'll feel it.
Yeah, for sure.
You said that so beautifully.
Oh, I appreciate that.
I feel everything you just said completely. And I think the way you just phrased it is exactly why I think that moment stands out so much.
Yeah.
And, in the moment, I was like, mental snapshot. I was like, remember this.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it lives so rent-free in my head, because in that moment and in that stillness, I was just like, this is one of my favorite things ever, with one of my favorite people in one of the most beautiful places I've ever been, and I'm just here in the stillness. And your body is like fighting to survive, but it allows you to like just focus and get rid of all that noise.
Gets rid of the noise.
Man, you just captured that perfectly. I had a friend who lived in this really swanky apartment complex in Portland, a handful of years ago, and I would go visit him quite a bit. I was going through a lot of stuff in life, and he was kind of my refuge at the time, and so I'd just get my butt to Portland as much as I could. And he had this awesome it was so great. Like on the lobby floor, first floor in his apartment, there was this kind of like a spa, but it had an ice bath, a hot tub, the steam room, the sauna. It had like everything like right together, overlooking the Portland, I guess the Columbia
homeless
River.
Encampment.
It was above that. Yeah. The facade of the building kind of cut that part, so you're just looking at the river, and it was so, like, your body would just feel so refreshed coming out of this. And so he had a whole program, and I think his program was like pretty great, so I just kind of follow along with it,
Yeah.
and it was basically like, I think like hot. And there was even like a warm bath there too. So, you'd sit in one and then you'd go to the other for like a couple minutes, and then you'd go to the steam room, and then
Yep.
you'd come back and you'd do this. I would just kind of follow his thing, but it was awesome. Um, I will say again, kind of if I hit it big, having a masseuse.
Yeah.
Another thing I would do is it's like I'd have something like that.
Yeah.
I think that one of those elements, the least that I care about is the hot tub.
Yeah. Me too.
I could, like the hot
Take
tub,
it or
I could
leave
take
it.
it or leave
Yeah.
it. Like the ice bath is essential. The steam room is fantastic. The sauna is awesome. I love, like, my two favorite would probably be the sauna and the cold plunge.
We did a
But I
men's
love
group
'em.
thing, and one thing that they did is Greg had set up like a traditional wood sauna. It was like a portable one. It was pretty kick ass out on this riverbank, and the river was right there. So we'd go out and cold plunge, like swim around for a few minutes, then hit the sauna, and we're just back and forth in there. And to a point where I'm like, I don't know, dude. There's something about, I don't know what it is about being in those types of extreme environments, but what it does, again, spiritually, right? A lot of people would say mentally, but I think it's even beyond that. It's like there's this spiritual component to it when you're in those environments, especially around other people, where you start to feel this augmented sense of connection, and the conversation's kicking off in a way that's like really connecting, and it's just kind of a beautiful thing. But okay, so to kind of put a bow on this, this is what I want to
I
ask.
have one more whole round.
Well,
One more-
I'm ready to hear it.
Okay.
For sure. So we're gonna go on that, but to close out, I just want us to go over, hey, like 4 or 5 things, if you were to say,
Okay.
even if it was to your younger self, hey, start these like right
thinking
away,
about that.
and then, but yeah, whatever your last deal is, let's hit it.
So it's about the breathing stuff
Yes.
that you talked about last time. So I want to tell you about my experience with this because I've kind of come a long way. So I was going through a divorce, and I'd really kind of hit my bottom. Like my life just like imploded on me back in like 2019, 2018. And one of my good friends at the time had suggested Wim Hof breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And so
That style of breathing is the same thing that we were doing during the
yeah,
deal.
so I remember, and so what had happened with him, I think his brother-in-law had been in a really bad car accident and was paralyzed from the waist down. But his mind was still like active.
Yep.
And so he and his brother-in-law in some way had kind of come across Wim Hof breathing, and he had told me like how impactful that had been for his brother-in-law and how it had really changed things. And he would do these breathing exercises with him all the time, and he'd really suggested, as I was going through this chaos in my life, check this out.
Yeah.
And he sent me a video, and I remember, it's just chaos at the time. Not really prioritizing the stillness.
Sure.
And then there was one time where I think I had tried to do it a couple times, but I think I just wasn't really in the mood for it. And so I wasn't really fully participating. And then there was a day I was at my brother's house, and I was, at that time, anything to kind of like distract me and keep, I'd watch TV, watch The Office reruns or
Yep.
whatever, play video games, read a book. I'd do anything to kind of try and distract myself
Sure.
to get through this. And this particular day, everything was just not working. And I just had like, my stomach was in knots. I was feeling like the massive weight of anxiety and stress, and it was really not fun. And so it hit me. I was like, try the Wim Hof. And so that night I like really focused and was like, all right, I'm going to really commit to this, and I can't do anything else. I'm like, this just sucks. I don't know what to do. And let me just do this. my friend had kind of suggested. I don't feel like I gave it my whole heart the first couple times, so I did it. And within, it's broken into like 3 rounds, the ones I've kind of done. Um, and after the first round, I felt like my body start like just like just like buzzing.
Yep.
And I remember just like smiling and just
Yeah.
like, oh my God, this is crazy. And so I go through it all, and my entire like mental and emotional and physical state had transformed. And I picked up my phone. I was like, oh my God, dude.
Yep.
I like sent a message to this guy. I was like, oh my God. So then I'm going through like some counseling stuff at that time. So I'm like telling everyone like
Yeah.
this thing, because I'm with a lot of people at that time who were going through some really bad things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, all right, and I kind of tell them what I just told you, and I highly recommend this. I was doing that, and then I found Orthodoxy, and then, in Orthodoxy they have like the Jesus prayer, which is, it's a prayer you say, you're talking about kind of constant, unceasing prayer.
Yep.
From an Orthodox perspective, like this is one of the tools that we use to kind of do that. And so then I start trying to integrate the Jesus prayer into my things. And I'm having like, there's several times when I'm doing this where I'm having like intense reactions. I'm like breaking down, like bawling.
Yeah.
And when you were describing it, I was very much on the same wavelength. Like I understood what you were talking about when you were talking about with Preston. Then I'm reading some of the saints who were warning against.
So this is something I was going to say, and I didn't know if this was going to go in this direction. After it was all done, that was like the first thought that I had, where it was like, I don't know if that's actually a good thing, or if that is something that and of course I was like, there's got to be some people in Orthodoxy that specifically that would know or have some opinions on this, right? Because there's two components to it where I'm like, okay, well, we obviously have the capacity to have this experience through this medium, but we have the capacity to have a lot of experiences through a lot of mediums that aren't for our benefit, right?
The devil masquerades as an angel of light, right?
Sure.
And so
I think about like things like psychedelics, right?
There are a lot of things that appear good.
Yeah. Cody had said something to me that was something akin to, like, and we were talking about mushrooms, and he was like, I think that maybe that kind of psychedelic almost breaks, I'm kind of paraphrasing, breaks through this spiritual veil that very few people have done the spiritual work to actually be able to, what's the word I'm looking for? Safely wasn't the word he used, but to safely actually see beyond that, and you need to be very careful. And keep that in mind. And that was where my brain, him talking about psychedelics in that way, was exactly where my brain went after I had this experience that was so profound. But again, right, the next thought was like, shoot, dude, but I don't know from like in the Christian purview if this was actually a good thing, and should I be, and me and Preston talked about it on the podcast, and even after the podcast, like, man, is that something I should necessarily be promoting for people to be pursuing?
So and what I will say about like psychedelics and those things, it's like, I think as simplistically as I can kind of explain it, I see things as, the material, which we can see, touch, feel, hear, and then there's like a veil.
Yes.
It's almost like a stage, and there's like the curtain. And there's always things going on behind the veil. There's always this spiritual element with everything we do.
Yes.
And smoking weed, doing mushrooms, doing some of these other things, ayahuasca, all this stuff, what that does, at least in part, is it kind of peels the veil back. And exactly what you said, one of the problems, particularly in Christianity, is we're not ready for that veil. We haven't done, like you said, the spiritual work to do that. Like, we have many, many saints who will like write about these. Like, we have a lot of this stuff, in our tradition and teaching where we learn what these things look like, and they've gotten there through prayer and asceticism, through
Yes.
prayer and fasting and constant repentance, and through this. And there is a path to gain that knowledge. You know, we think of the garden with Adam and Eve, and the tree that Eve and Adam eat from. It's essentially, anecdotally, at least, it is this kind of spiritual wisdom, and it's not that it's bad, but it must be attained
Yeah.
in a particular way. And doing psychedelics, smoking weed, even will pierce that veil.
Yes.
You'll get glimpses into these things. And for me, some of these glimpses have helped connect things
Yeah.
that I wouldn't have otherwise been able to connect. And it's helped bring me back. God uses all these things for good. And so it's helped bring me back to a deeper understanding of spirituality, and like really understanding that the spiritual dimension is like real.
Yeah.
I think because we can spend a lot of time in our material world and not really give too much credence. It's like, just listen to the experts, like
Yep.
follow the science, and what does the data say? I could care less about that. They're like,
Yep.
they have no understanding on what's
Totally.
going on the other side. Like you're talking about with ice baths, like I don't care what the science
Yeah.
says. Like it's nonsense to
Yep.
me. Like they don't have the foggiest clue how to connect all these things.
Mhm.
And we do have sources that do connect all these things. And in the same kind of manner, some of these breathing things, like you were kind of intuiting. So I am reading. I'm having these like deeply spiritual experiences.
Yes.
At first, I don't know there's anything wrong. And then I'm reading like St. Paisios talk about this. And he's a beloved saint. He's my family's patron saint. And, I love that man so dearly. And he's talking about the dangers with some of these things. So I'm like, And Cody and I go out to the monastery for our first overnight. It was Cody's first time out there. And we had some time with the abbot out on his porch.
Mm.
And one of the things I wanted to talk about was this. So I told him, and I was kind of thinking in my head, I remember feeling like, I'm going to tell him I'm doing the Jesus prayer with these breathing exercises. Yeah. And he's going to be like, yeah, good boy.
Yeah.
It's like, good job. You're doing so good.
Sure.
But I also had a sense in my mind that like maybe I shouldn't be doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of told him I was doing like these Wim Hof things with these prayers, but I had kind of read that maybe I shouldn't be doing these things. And simply put, he told me to like basically stop. Like, this is not something you're mature enough for. Like, this
Interesting.
is something like you have to progress to the level where you can kind of do some of these things. And so and I think maybe to kind of close that, like what's the danger? Like I'm having all these great experiences.
Yeah.
I think I still talk about it sometimes with people in my life who are going through severe trauma
Yeah.
as like a little bit of a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
But I tell them, I warn them, like, be careful.
Yeah.
Because, I think the abbot's kind of advice, and I think maybe orthodoxies, I don't want to speak too much for this because I'm really not qualified,
Sure.
but essentially you can have these like deeply spiritual experiences. And particularly if you're like doing something like the Jesus prayer, like you can really misalign some of these things. You can
Yeah.
get your wires really crossed, and you can kind of make idols of some of these things.
Well, so the idol point, when I walked away this is me speaking personally, is that, and I've had this realization with a lot of this stuff, and it's the reason that I choose now to stay away from things like psychedelics and cannabis and all this kind of stuff. It's because I know that for me personally, Aaron Myers has a tendency, even if I identify it as like this spiritual experience that I think is like, well, I feel like I'm, getting closer to God through this stuff. I know for sure that I have a tendency to worship the experience in and of itself more than any of the spiritual benefits that I'm getting out of it. and like chasing that experience, like the experiential component to it. And so that's the part that I really struggle with. And I haven't, and to be transparent, I haven't messed with the breathing stuff since we've done it.
Yep.
And it's because I've been sitting on a lot of these thoughts where I'm like, I don't know if this is actually, this is not where I was expecting this podcast to go, by the way, but to be spiritually beneficial, or if it's going to be something that is damaging in the long term. And I don't want to approach that stuff until I get to a point where I feel really confident that it's something that I'd want to reintegrate.
I knew this podcast was going to go. I'd been sitting on it since I heard you guys talk about it. Because like the reality is, like, I had the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
I know this. I know what you felt, and people going through severe trauma, and you need a Band-Aid to get through. I'm like, all right, but be careful with it. So, alternatively, the reality is we spend our whole life, most of us, shallow breathing, right?
Yes.
And it is like kind of through our mouth, this shallow breathing, and it keeps us in this like sympathetic response system where it's essentially keeping us constantly anxious, difficulty to sleep. There are all these like, high cortisol levels and high stress response with the shallow breathing. So one of the things that it's like tapping into on a biological level, like the Wim Hof stuff, is that deep breathing is actually how we're supposed to be breathing,
yes.
right? It taps into like the vagus nerve response thing.
It's literally what Preston said.
Yeah. So alternative to doing some of these breathing exercises, I would say like kind of consciously doing deep diaphragmatic breaths. Your diaphragm, when we're doing this shallow breathing, like we're not triggering the diaphragm, and the diaphragm does a whole lot of things to kind of regulate your body, regulate your gut biome, all these different things that I have no qualifications or understanding on.
And people that don't understand, like if you like diaphragmatic breathing, lay on your back, take a breath that forces you to like push your stomach out.
Yep.
That's what he's talking about.
Yeah, really like breathe through the stomach and breathe through your nose. Doing like 6 to 7 of those a minute will get you very much the same kind of benefits.
Yeah.
Without turning this method into kind of an idol. As with all things, it's not all bad or all good. There are seeds of this, but I've been warned. I've read it in the Saints. It's like I am hesitant to kind of advise anyone to do any of like the breathing practices in the same way. And we're pretty close to that time, I understand, so we're not going to get into it, but like same way with yoga. And if you want to learn about the problems with yoga, I would direct you to Father Seraphim Rose's book, Orthodoxy and the Religion of the Future. There is...
I think I have that one on my shelf, actually.
It is... You read that book, you'll understand what's wrong with yoga and...
I just pulled his book, Nihilism, off my shelf
that's
recently.
A good one.
Yeah.
That's a really good one, too. But Father Seraphim Rose, Orthodoxy and the Religion of the Future for all the issues with yoga. But do your deep diaphragmatic breaths, and that will help. Like, because none of us are really doing that most of the time. And our bodies are constantly anxious with high cortisol levels, highly stressed out. So work on that.
Yep.
You had said 4 or 5 things that I'd recommend.
Yeah. Well, I want to say this last component to that is like when it comes to things like we just live in a culture, and actually me and my wife Samantha were just talking about this. We live in a culture that approaches things like cannabis or doing mushrooms, or breathwork didn't come up, but this falls into the same vein, where we treat it as just this benign thing.
Yes.
And there's only benefits to it.
Yoga.
Yeah, and it's like if you're to really examine some of this stuff on the physiological level, but especially on a spiritual level, you're going to find like it's not as straightforward, and this stuff isn't just benign, totally harmless, you're only going to see benefits out of it. Yeah. And I know, and it sounds so like not tea. What is it? Tea.
Honestly, if it sounds kooky,
Yeah.
you're not at the point you should be doing it because you don't
Yes,
understand
I would
these
agree.
things.
I would
Like,
agree.
if you're playing around with these things and you don't understand the
Yep.
spiritual ramifications of them,
And
like
yeah,
you need to learn more.
it's so funny because like growing up, especially as a kid, right? You hear like pastors and stuff talk about like the spiritual component to things. You're like, this dude's a square, right? And then as you get older, you're like, oh crap, that guy was totally right about some of this stuff. I like you the immaturity piece. Like I was just really too immature to appreciate this for how powerful it could be one way or another. And I think that it's important to approach all this stuff with that.
You know, talking about the breath too, right? In Hebrew and Greek, like the breath is also basically equates to the spirit,
Mm.
right? And the breath is the thing that like denotes life, right? It's like when God breathes life into Adam, it is that breath that's like giving him life. There's, I think in Ezekiel, where it's like God, there's this breathing on these dry bones that brings them to life. Um, there's there's a bunch of these kind of
Yeah.
examples. In the Pentecost, it's like the Holy Spirit descends and is like these. There's like this breath thing where the the breath work, like you said, is not benign.
Yeah.
Uh,
So whenever we have these conversations, these are the types of moments talking with you about like Christianity and the times where I don't know how many like deep conversations about Christianity me and Cody had gotten to, but we always like this was our kind of the vision. Like we wanted to get into this place. I always wonder like I would say majority of the listeners I can't imagine would be Christian even
yeah,
nominally.
yeah.
I wonder how many people are just like listen to it and
Just kooky.
yeah, and like and walk away from
Well,
it.
think about
But
your experiences when you smoke weed.
yeah,
Like
sure,
think about some of the stuff. Like go go sit in an ice bath. Go, try the breath stuff.
sure,
See if you feel like really go do the Wim Hof thing.
yep,
If you really are at the point where you like just don't buy any of this. I remember the first time he told me about the breath stuff, I thought it was ridiculous.
yeah,
And that's why I didn't really like prioritize it. I was like
yeah,
breathing exercise.
breathing,
That just
yeah,
sounds weird and unnecessary.
yep,
And then when I fully like dove in,
yeah,
like dang,
yeah,
this actually is a game changer.
sure,
It can change this whole disposition, can create experiences like you had.
mm-hmm,
But once you have that, just be wary of
yeah,
what you're playing with. Like you are playing with fire, and like the devil does not entice us with things that look bad.
yeah.
Like he entices us with beautiful fruit and
It,
things that appear wonderful
dude,
until
yeah.
we're too far down.
It totally pains me to say that like my dad was right about so much of this stuff, dude.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
we'd have conversations about like Ouija boards and stuff like that when
Yeah.
I was growing up, and it was like and he actually grew up
Tarot
Catholic,
cards,
yeah,
things
tarot
like that.
cards, and I was just like, all right, whatever,
Yeah.
old man.
Yeah.
And then it's like you get older, you're like, there's certainly something to a lot of this stuff, but. For those people that are still listening at this point, honestly, I think that even if you're not into this stuff, it's a fascinating thing to hear about. Whether it's just fascinating to the point of like, man, Aaron and Matt are nuts, or you're like you've had your own experience. And dude, even Nate Yeager had shared something about like having this spiritual experience when Cody passed, and I think a lot of people have experiences like that. They just don't necessarily have the framework to. I don't know, to integrate it. I don't really know what the word is there to to approach it. But I've just known plenty of people like that. But anyway, so to close this out, if you were to pick 5 things to tell either a young Matt or just people that are getting into it now, maybe at the blue belt level where they're really trying to integrate more of a holistic practice of jiu-jitsu, what would you say? What would be those 5 things, or less?
Yeah,
whatever you gotta
don't neglect the recovery thing. So the foam rollers or cork rollers, I think if you really start playing around with those, they're awesome. When you're sitting around doing your passive activities, being lazy, sitting on the couch. Like, try and not sit on the couch and do something somewhat productive. Be it sitting in a squat, doing some of the split type things you were doing, like rolling out, whatever it is. Like, couple those things so that you get some benefit. And you're also like target specific things, right? Like, I was targeting my hamstring flexibility. Like, there are particular things that like I really try and focus on, like, and it's not a lot. I try and work on like hamstring like strength and stuff, like with a ball and everything. And it's like for clamping down on people's back and like in triangles, like having I want for my body weight to have like a freaking triangle or clamp that feels like I'm 50 pounds heavier. Like, I want to be able to like hold a clamp, and then like the feet. Once I start figuring out, it's like the little hand feet, the grip. So I target very specific things so that it translates over to jiu-jitsu. Ice baths and sauna. You said another one that we didn't even really talk about in depth, but I will say this is my last one. Hanging.
Yeah.
Hanging from a bar or raft or whatever. If you spend like 5 minutes a day just like a dead hang, I used to do pull-ups. I'd do pull-ups between like every set of most of my exercises. Now I don't do as many pull-ups, but I often will hang between like all my sets.
Yeah, heck yeah.
But that hang I do it a lot for like my back because I sit at a computer all day. It kind of helps with the posture and everything, but also that grip strength, right? It's targeting a couple things that I want to target intentionally. So hanging from a bar or rafter would be my last one, I guess.
Okay. Well, for my 5, I'm going to say I really, if I'm thinking about this true, I would, number one thing that I would suggest, I think that cold plunge would be it, oddly enough. If I were at the beginning of the episode, not sure if I would have felt that way, but I think that our discussion kind of solidified the fact that I have found so much benefit in bringing that into my protocols that I can't recommend it enough. If you can have some kind of cold plunge setup, right? There's a lot of cheap ones out there, especially if you can get like some type of ice machine or they have like these chillers and stuff.
We're in the Puget Sound. Most of the months of the year, go into the sound.
There you go. Go into the sound.
Go to a river, creek.
Precisely, right? Cold plunge, I think, is number 1. Number 2, I think that foam rolling, but I'm going to incorporate both foam rolling and like stretching flexibility training. And the reason I would pick those 2 things is because there's something you can do during your what would typically be passive time. You can do those things in front of the TV. You can do it while listening to your podcast, while listening to your music, and this sort of thing. Number 3, I'm going to pick some kind of like strength training program just as a generality, because it's not just the fact that your body's going to look better, but like when it comes to bulletproofing your body, there's just a lot of data out there. And again, like the anecdotal evidence as well, that when you start incorporating some type of strength training and something that's going to put more muscle mass on your body, you're going to find some serious benefit from doing that. My number 4, I would say is... Dude, I don't even know what I would say for like the last 2, to be honest with you.
Well, I neglected one, and maybe you can still have yours. Walking backwards up a hill.
Sure.
Like
knees over toes. I'll just say that. Like the knees over toes protocols, like just go look it up. YouTube, there's plenty of like starting off with this knees over toes protocol as far as like bulletproofing your knees, because this sport, if I've heard of the most injuries that I have seen doing this art have been guys that have blown their knee out in some way or another. And then the final thing I would say is some kind of like spinal decompression or transversal workouts, whether that's like side-to-side kettlebell swings, some type of steel mace work, because it's just a plane of movement that we tend to neglect, especially if you're doing like traditional bodybuilding style stuff. It's very, right, like front side, back side kind of a deal, and you're missing a lot of like the side-to-side stuff. So a lot of like the side-to-side kettlebell swings, a lot of the hanging or inversion tables and that kind of stuff, just something to like really like decompress that spinal column. I think it's all of a benefit. And Yeah, so those would be my 5. I think it was a pretty good episode, to be honest with you, dude. My favorite part was probably the last half hour where we're talking about like the spiritual things, but that's just me. That's like the stuff that I enjoy talking
saved
about.
it for the last half
yeah,
hour.
dude, it fills my cups. We really like brought people in with the the physical stuff, and then we just sprinkled in a little bit about the saints and and spirituality in there. And then the final, I want to actually, now that I know that Grace listens to the podcast, I don't know if she'll listen to this one, but when she first started, I told her, if you keep on coming in here, you're going to get good fast. And the reason I say that is because she came in and she had like this hunger for knowledge that I don't see. I see people come in and very competitive. I see people come in with a drive to work, but there was just this hunger for knowledge on the art itself that I saw in this young lady that was like, I don't know. There was just something about it that I've keyed in on, and I really liked that. And then she would come into open mat and have like, instructional, or like she'd be telling me, I was watching this online tutorial about XYZ, and then I see her over there messing with a grappling dummy and doing this kind of stuff. And then she was bringing friends into open mat, and then it was pretty quick that we would get rolls in, and then 3 weeks later, I'm like, oh, she's actually figured out some of these positions, and I'm actually having to think my way through it, And so I just want to say, Grace, if you are listening to this, you are exactly where you should be, and you are on the path. I hope you continue doing this, because I don't say it lightly, and I certainly don't say it to every new person that comes in. But like when you meet someone that's like, if you really key in on this stuff, and she seems to be doing all the right things, like you could get really good, and this is going to be kind of a lifelong endeavor. So I just want to offer that kind of encouragement, and thanks for shouting at me at the park, dude, and saying you listen to the podcast. That's pretty sick. But other than that, this has been episode 21. That is
one more than 20.
One more. Yeah, thank you, dude. Well, what I was going to say is, like, for the first while, I was always like, 10. Most podcasts stop going and they never make it to 10 episodes, and we are double that plus 1, which would be 21, right? 21 episodes in. I think my next episode, I'm still trying to figure out who I want to have on, but Adam, I think I'm gonna have Coach Adam on next, maybe Preston. I'm really trying to get Chris Yeagley. I don't know if he listens to this, but he's like the mystery man at the gym that I've been trying to grab for a long time. If you want to follow us on social media, we have the Grappler's Dilemma on Instagram, and my email, which was actually utilized by someone recently, was the Grappler's Dilemma podcast at gmail.com. It's like some jiu-jitsu black belt who also runs a company. He's like, hey, I just listened to your stuff early. Like, would you want to do like a video call? Which I don't know how I feel about that yet. Because he could be just a crazy person that's trying to pitch something, but it could be fun. Could be fun.
Check it out.
Good, yeah. And then I also have a Grappler's Dilemma TikTok, which you're actually the #1 viewed clip talking about wrestling. Nice. Wrestlers, that community, dude, they're about wrestling. Nice. So when you were talking about like how beneficial it was for you growing up wrestling, for as far as just mental toughness and being like more physical and all this kind of stuff, people keyed in on that, and then it was like that's the one I get the most comments and stuff on. But it was awesome. So that's been pretty fun. But yeah, dude, it's been a good ride. There's a lot that has gone on just in the course. It's kind of a weird way to like take milestones of like since me and Cody had started this to where we're at now, the way life looks now, where jiu-jitsu's at now, like my personal life, and it's a weird thing to have another almost like barometer of checkpoint to like look back on, like, man, okay, this is pretty crazy. We're at this point now, and I don't know, man.
It's all about the climb, buddy.
Yeah, all about the climb. It's the journey, not the destination, as they say. But anyway, as always, ladies and gentlemen, train hard, stay safe. Os.